We are starting with that breaking news out of the White House. President Trump, in really just the last hour and change, saying that the war with Iran could be over soon. He's calling it a settlement. Listen to this.
We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents, which should get done over the next few days.
Okay, so what is in this settlement? President Trump says the deal means Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon. Details on how that's going to work, TBD. He also says the Strait of Hormuz will reopen when this deal is signed, which could be maybe next week. Now, let me give a little grain of salt. Literally just got handed this statement from Iran. Iran state media, apparently through state media, I believe, said, I'm going to quote you here, reports regarding an agreement are speculative and nothing has been finalized. So perhaps a bit of cold water on this message from President Trump that was a huge shift in tone from what we saw, 4, 5, 6 hours ago. He threatened to basically wipe out this entire island here after back-to-back nights of what are being called self-defense strikes against Iran after the Iranians downed an Apache military helicopter. So markets also along for the ride. At this point, rallying. Remember, this was about an hour ago before this latest Iran statement came out. We've got team coverage tonight. We've got Matt Bradley in the region. Brian Cheung is standing by for all things economy. But let me start with Monica Alba, who is live for us at the White House. Mon, you know, this new statement from Iran says any talk of an agreement apparently is speculative. The president seemed more definitive, but still some question marks on timing here. I mean, is there a deal? Is there a peace agreement or not?
We don't know, Hallie, and that is really the long and the short of it. The president is the one who likes to come out and make these announcements, but as we have seen repeatedly a pattern emerge over the last couple of weeks, sometimes the president puts something out there trying to sort of will it into existence or indicating that things are a bit closer than they are in reality. And this may be an instance of that, or there may actually be a diplomatic breakthrough here that is significant, but we just don't know what's actually in this potential memorandum of understanding. And it's one thing for the president to say that senior Iranian leadership has signed off. He was even asked specifically whether the supreme leader had agreed to this, had looked at the terms and was on board, and the president indicated yes, that was the case. But what you just read from Iranian state media seems to indicate that there are still some potential hangups here, which has really been the case throughout the entirety of these very fragile negotiations. But here's a little bit more of what President Trump had to say about what he claims could be in this tentative agreement.
Most importantly, we have a deal that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which was the whole purpose of what we had to go through to get this. So it was a very big thing. But we have a signing soon.
And on that question of a signing, Hallie, there are more details that we've asked the White House about there that we haven't gotten clarity on. But remember that it seems like this potential framework, if this is indeed something that is signed, would really just kickstart a more intensive and longer period of negotiations. When we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, we thought it was somewhere in the 60 to 90-day range. So again, it's unclear whether that's what we're talking about here or whether this is going to go back to square one and the president could re-up some of his threats that he was making just hours ago about potentially ramping up military action, only then to bring it back down.
Monica Alba, plenty to watch at the White House. Also plenty to watch, Matt Bradley, from where you are in Qatar. Give us the reality check from where you're standing.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, you just rattled off all the things that President Trump said were in that deal. And you mentioned, of course, that skepticism coming from the Iranian side. We did hear from the president saying it sounded like the supreme leader, he said, had agreed to the deal. Now, we're not so sure. But remember that we also got a comment from the Prime Minister's office of Israel. And he said, although Israel isn't a party to the Memorandum of Understanding, remember that bit, he said that he expressed his appreciation to President Trump for including the commitment to a final agreement that would include the removal of enriched uranium or enriched material, dismantling of enrichment infrastructure, limiting missile production, and ending Iran's support for its terrorist proxy regimes in the region. Now, Hallie, if all of that is indeed in the agreement, if President Trump did in fact say that to Netanyahu, and if all of that is true, that would mean that Iran has basically sold the whole farm. All of those things, everything that was just listed in that statement from the Prime Minister's Office of Israel, that is a wish list of everything that Israel wanted. But that statement started by saying that Israel wasn't a part of these negotiations. So it does seem like that would be a huge, huge set of concessions from the Iranian side, including basically giving up its support for Hezbollah. Remember, Hezbollah and its fight against the Israelis was one of the main sticking points, not just to these negotiations, but even to opening these negotiations in the first place. The highly enriched uranium, much of that is buried underground after those U.S. strikes last June. So a lot of these things really just seem really quite pie in the sky. So maybe the Israeli prime minister has a different view of what is going on. Maybe Donald Trump gave them a different perspective, alternative facts of what was agreed upon in this memorandum of understanding. But hearing from the Iranian side, it really does sound like the Iranians have not agreed to what the president is really presenting as huge concessions from Tehran.
And again, all of this developing in literally the last like 8 minutes or so. Matt Bradley, thank you. We'll check back in with you. Let me get to Brian Cheung, who's tracking the markets for us. Wall Street liked President Trump calling off that strike earlier. Question is, how are they going to like the developments after the closing bell?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the broad story throughout the beginning, or really since this conflict began at the end of February, is that when there are signs that this war can go on, then you see the markets go down. And when there are signs that maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel, the markets go up. That's exactly what you saw as the Dow Jones, as you point out, up almost 1,000 points, almost 2% today. And again, the big story going into the 1:30 p.m. Eastern time post on Truth Social that the president was going to suspend those strikes tonight was that earlier this week, when the president began those strikes on Iran, you saw the markets go down. Now, of course, there are a number of reasons for why markets go down, including a few inflation reports that we've got recently that showed a hotter print on the pace of price increases in this country. But again, the concern here is that the president, yes, is looking at the stock market, which is oftentimes a measuring stick for him to judge his own performance and going, okay, well, the Dow Jones is up now 1,000 points almost because of the announcement that we were going to suspend these strikes. But you still have the overall picture, like you see on that screen ahead of you, producer prices. This is how much the retailers that we purchase from have to pay in terms of getting those things into their stores, up 6.5% between May of this year and May of last year. You'd have to go back to November 2022 to see a number that high. Those are things that cannot be reversed easily, despite the president's insistence that things will drop like a rock, inflation will drop like a rock once the conflict is over.
A lot of moving pieces. Brian Cheung, thank you very much. Our thanks to Matt and Monica as well.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.